There are moments in life when it feels like you are climbing a mountain wrapped in thick fog. No one is walking beside you. No one is clapping. No one is watching your progress. Still, you keep moving forward. You keep trying. You keep honoring a quiet promise you once made to yourself. Yet the world around you feels strangely silent. No one says they are proud of you. No one notices the invisible battles you fight every day. And sometimes a heavy question rises inside you. Is it worth continuing when no one sees it? But it is inside this very solitude that a different kind of strength begins to grow. A strength that does not depend on applause or validation. Carl Jung once said that every rebirth begins with a breaking apart. When there is no one left to lean on, it is not the end of your path. It is a signal that your soul is preparing to enter a new stage, a stage where you become your own source of power. The moment you stop waiting for someone else to lift you, a deep truth reveals itself. Everything you have ever searched for outside yourself, love, strength, peace, direction, has always lived inside you, waiting quietly. And when that realization arrives, you do not just rise. You begin to walk carrying your own light. There are times when life pulls away from you without warning. Conversations that once felt alive now feel empty. People who once felt close begin to drift. On the surface, nothing appears different. Your job remains. Your relationships remain. But inside, you know something is shifting. Most people are afraid of this stage and never speak about it. But Jung saw it clearly. It is the beginning of the inner descent, the moment when the soul enters its night journey. You no longer resonate with the old world, and to step into something new, you must first pass through loneliness. This loneliness is not about being physically alone. It is the feeling of being disconnected from everything that once made you feel you belonged. You still smile, you still speak, but deep inside, you sense that what surrounds you no longer touches your soul. The world feels like it is speaking a language you no longer understand, leaving you alone with yourself. Many people believe reaching this point means failure. In truth, it is the moment your soul begins separating from the mask you wore to fit in. Feeling misunderstood does not mean you are lost. It means you are getting closer to who you really are. Jung believed real maturity begins when a person dares to face themselves in solitude. Not when someone listens, but when all external noise fades and the inner voice finally becomes audible. At this stage, many people run. They bury themselves in work, relationships, distractions, anything to avoid the emptiness. But avoidance only makes the emptiness grow. Loneliness does not come to punish you. It comes to deepen you. It arrives to rebuild your foundation from the inside out. I once knew someone who, after her marriage ended, felt completely disoriented. Her life had always been full of people, laughter, noise. When everything collapsed, her home became painfully quiet. Instead of filling the silence with new faces or endless activity, she learned to sit with it. At first for minutes, then hours, she cooked for herself. She wrote, she read, she faced questions she had avoided for years. One day she said, "Silence is no longer my enemy. It is where I finally hear myself." That is what Jung called meeting the self. The moment you stop running and begin returning home. When no one is there to depend on, pressure forces discipline to grow. Like a climber without a rope, every step becomes intentional. Every promise kept strengthens your inner structure. Loneliness does not weaken you. It forges you. It is the training ground where your soul becomes unshakable. Think of an oak tree in winter, stripped of leaves, standing alone in the cold wind. During that season, its roots grow deeper, preparing for spring. Humans are no different. Every lonely season is an inner winter. If you stay, if you endure, spring will follow. Jung once said that within chaos there is hidden order. If you are standing in darkness now, do not fear it. It means you are leaving an old path behind. Something new is forming. When the world goes silent, the inner voice whispers that it is time to rise. No one is coming to lift you, and that is not bad news. That is where real strength is born. Eventually, another realization arrives. What drains you is not loneliness itself, but the hope that someone else will fill it. Jung said loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate what truly matters. When you depend on others to regulate your emotions, every silence feels like rejection. That is not love. It is emotional dependence. The next lesson is learning how to soothe yourself. When you stop chasing reassurance, the deeper self begins to lead. I once met someone who panicked whenever messages went unanswered. Silence made her feel invisible. Later she discovered this fear was not about the present. It was old. As a child, her emotions were dismissed. Her unconscious learned that feelings did not matter. So she spent her life searching for someone to prove otherwise. Jung called this emotional projection. When others respond, you feel worthy. When they withdraw, you collapse. But no one can be your savior forever. True emotional independence does not mean shutting down. It means staying with your emotions instead of abandoning yourself. When sadness comes, you do not run, you stay. You remind yourself that you are still here. This is where autonomy is born. A person who can comfort themselves does not need constant validation. They can sit alone, complete. This is not coldness, it is freedom. Dependency is not love. It is fear of abandonment. When you face that fear, you realize it is an invitation to become the caregiver you once needed. From this place, love becomes a choice, not a need. You grieve losses, but you do not collapse. You feel pain, but you do not disappear. You stop waiting to be saved. You stop abandoning yourself. That is maturity. That is strength. Another subtle challenge appears: complaining. It feels harmless, but it keeps you trapped. Every complaint reinforces powerlessness. Jung called this the shadow of self-pity. The moment you stop asking why this happened to you and start asking what you can do with it, energy begins to move again. Complaining feels like action, but it is stillness in disguise. Life continues flowing whether you complain or not. But if you endure instead of resist, life shapes you. Pain can become a chain or a teacher. The choice is yours. I once heard someone say that if no one were listening, they would stop repeating their story of pain. That realization changed everything. They stopped retelling the wound and started building something new. Stopping complaint does not mean denying pain. It means no longer living inside it. Every small action becomes a declaration of strength. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. Then comes the silence of being unseen. You work, you grow. You give your best and still no one notices. This is where many quit. Not because they cannot endure effort, but because they cannot endure invisibility. Jung said accepting oneself fully is terrifying because it removes the need for external proof. When you validate yourself, you become your own witness. External praise fades quickly, self-recognition lasts. When you work to see yourself instead of being seen, your foundation changes. Those who live from the self act not for applause but from inner truth. Steel is hardened by fire. So is the soul. Silence, neglect, and lack of recognition strengthen your core. When no one else validates you, you are forced inward. And there you discover you are far stronger than you imagined. You stop trying to shine, you simply stand, and that quiet presence becomes power. Even then, life will still make you fall. Failure returns, not to destroy you, but to reveal what remains unhealed. Each fall exposes hidden fear, old hunger for approval, unfinished shadow. When you rise without help, yourself expands. Failure does not weaken you, it makes you real. Pain becomes information, rock bottom becomes ground to push from. Falling is not weakness, staying down is. You learn to act without waiting for inspiration. Discipline replaces mood, will replaces emotion. Jung believed will reorganizes the psyche. Inspiration comes and goes. Will stays. When you act without motivation, you stop being ruled by feelings, you act from purpose. Consistency shapes destiny. Those who endure when enthusiasm fades build something unbreakable. Finally, you realize something profound. You do not need to be understood. Everything you seek is already within you. No one can fully understand your inner journey, and that is okay. When you stop chasing understanding, you return inward. There, contradictions harmonize, fear and courage, darkness and light. You become your own center. Like a lighthouse, you do not move or shout. You simply stand, and others feel it. No one completes you. You were never incomplete. Love, peace, understanding are all forms of returning to yourself. That is how you rise when no one stands beside you. Not by proving, but by awakening. You were never weak. You just had not yet seen your own strength.